So I have just a couple thoughts that I would share with you. And I think that the two big issues the panel faces are transparency, and so the public knows what we're doing and why we're doing it. And I think we addressed that in Robinson, the tinted windows case, where we decided to put in the basic facts that were found, that was by an IVC camera, and then the reasons that we came to that conclusion. Because when that becomes public, the public, sorry, will know why we decided it was a good investigation, as opposed to not. So I think transparency is particularly important. The second thing, and I would urge you to, I assume that the panel will continue that policy of giving this. If we expect the police department to do it, it's pretty hard for us to not do the same thing. Richard does it with his reports. He has the full statements of facts. You are right, there's a quirk in the action item that I don't think anybody thought about. It needs to be smoothed out. But Richard has had no complaints ever about the investigative file information he puts in his reports, as I understand. He can tell us if it's different, but that doesn't seem to be a concern. But the language is funky, but you've addressed it. The other major issue, and this was hinted at the forum, but it's the need for the panel to review and understand what all the initial complaints are, and what the complaints are about, and what the police department found. Now, we're not reviewing the complaint or the investigation per se, but when the compromise was made in the commission, it just is historical for everybody, and it became, as recommended, we were going to be able to hire an investigative consultant to help us understand things and maybe even conduct some of his or her own investigation. As a policy matter, that wasn't accepted by the board, independent of the legal reasoning. It was just decided that isn't how it should be done. It was really a resource issue, I think more than maybe whatever. So it was fine. We will refer all initial complaints to the police department to do the work, and they will report back. No one ever thought what report back. Rhonda has very efficiently and wisely not pushed the issue about getting a written report back. But those finding letters are part of the report back. But when they were saying nothing, we knew nothing about what was going on. Rhonda now has arranged for 2 liaisons to look at files as we deem necessary to understand what's happened. Like when we went to see, you could tell there might have been something worth looking at. And you know, at the forum, we got a suggestion that it was a bureaucratic barrier to have people file an initial complaint and then refile a request for review. And so you said it's hard to put yourself out there. We were expecting people to put themselves out there twice. One time, second time, after the police department's already disagreed with them. And they were saying, well, maybe you ought to treat every initial complaint as a request for a review at the same time. Because that really sort of was the original intent, was the panel would review all complaints, decided we could investigate them. But the original intent was there. And this is not something that I'm saying that ought to be thought about now, but you ought to think about going forward. How do you pick up trends unless you know, like the case she and I were in, we saw what was going on with the miscommunications between the public and the police, within the police, and within the public side of the whole thing is exactly when the person, and you all have seen the complaint, it was unfortunate that the complainant's son was run over and killed in an accident while there was no missing person report out on him. And I think that was public too. So I think a thing working with you all looking at for the next year is how do you want to go about learning and understanding what is going on in all those complaints And are your liaisons going to go and see every investigation? Not to review it, but just to understand what happened? And then do they come back and tell the rest of the panel? Like if she and I were going to tell you what happened in that, we would have to tell you some stuff from the file, and what went wrong, and what could be improved, and what training is necessary. Is that something that the panel wants to know about every complaint, so it can pick up trends, it can pick up issues? But that's something you all need to decide. What's the scope of that? Same thing with seeing Richard's use of force complaints and his investigations. It says that we may look at those. That was an accommodation when they took the use of force complaints away from here, because the police organizations thought that use of force was a sufficiently technical area that an expert in that area, a seasoned investigator, ought to be in reviewing those investigations. That was sent to Richard to do. But the thought was the panel would still be fully aware of what he learned and could talk to him about it. And I don't think we've picked up on that yet. I mean, that's a task that we really ought to think about. He's doing what we were going to do until the police associations, and I'll say rightfully, I think it made some sense, I agreed to it, ought to be subject to his review. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't know, even if there's no complaint, that there are racial or mental health aspects involved in some of that use of force. So that's another topic that I think the panel ought to decide what it wants to do with. The most useful authority we gave to the panel was the ability to ask for further investigation and to make it required. That was intentional because a number of people on the commission were concerned that if we saw there was a need for more investigation and we just asked for it and the police had some discretion as to whether or not to do it, we might not get the response we wanted or get any response. But it was written that way. So I think, and obviously we've used that, and a report has come. That's a public report. I don't know if it's written or not, but it's stated to be public. I think it was thought to be written, but it may not have gotten through. I don't think it matters because they come to the meeting and do this thing, and the public knows what the answers to our two questions. Let me just that made everything else. I think was most of the things that I made were covered in Rhonda's report, or we've discussed about. Let me just do real quick. That's it. That's really all I have in those things. But I think transparency and what to do with how you're going to handle all the complaints. Because when the citizens give that to the panel, they're thinking we're looking at it, or you're looking at it, that you're looking at it and understanding what it is. And if they don't request review, that doesn't mean they didn't still want the panel to actually understand what happened in there, and a couple people at least to go and see what happened in the file. Because if we had not gone, and the one you're talking about, we would have seen this complaint, they would have written a letter, and I don't know how detailed they're going to get in their findings letters, you know. But when you go and look at the file, you have a much better understanding. I don't think there's anything right now that would motivate Rhonda and I to say something needs to be done, except maybe have a mental health forum. But we might not even know that unless we'd gone and seen that file. So, but I think it's going to take an accommodation with the police department that the liaisons will be able to go to see every investigation that we get in the plan. We're not necessarily at that point reviewing it. We're picking up trends and issues. And if you have those quarterly meetings, that's where you communicate. You know, we're seeing this. I'll stop just in a second. I was on another one that Rhonda had me go over and look at as a liaison with I forget who. And there was a misunderstanding in the police department of the Virginia stalking law. And it was misapplied. People weren't aware of it. The person did not request a review. But there was clearly an issue of training and understanding of the stalking law and when you could apply it, and it wasn't applied in that case, and this person suffered another stalking incident. If you had those quarterly meetings, it's easy to, and to their credit, the station recommended, the station retrained all their people, because the commander could do that, and recommended that the whole department be retrained. We don't know whether that whole department was retrained, but those dialogues allow us to do that. We didn't review the investigation, we just picked up that there was a training issue. And if the training didn't happen, well then, there you go, in your quarterly meetings. But it's tough to bring it up at a Public Safety Committee meeting, which is right now our only thing. But anyway, thank you all for the opportunity. Thank you for picking up what the commission envisioned the panel would be like. And that's another little bit of a component to get myself out of the way and get, well, Randy got himself out of the way for his health. I mean, I don't know if he would, whatever, but he and I were greatly involved. Doug was involved, but he was involved in mental health, so he wasn't involved in this aspect of it. And I'm pleased that you all are members and are willing to pick it up. But there's a significant investment in the trust of the original commission and all those folks who came to tell us what the problems were, in the 8 of you now, and in Richard. And it takes time. You know, this is not easy. And if you're going to do a mental health forum and you're going to do a racial discrimination forum, it's going to take hours. Even apart from all the training that you have, but to do it right. And I'm no indication we're not putting enough time in now, but as you move forward, I think you'll find that. So I wish you the best. I'm available to do whatever was helpful in terms of legislative history, whatever you want to call it, about what something means. You know, and I've told Doug this, I've told you this, if you don't understand how something got to where it got to, and Doug may or may not, because he wasn't involved in it, I'm glad to help on that. And I'll get help on some of the forums, you know, if you want. I guess I can do that. I don't know why not. And you could maybe enlist other folks that you all know to help put those together. But anyway, thank you. A whole lot of trust is invested in you, and I wish you well as you carry that out. Thank you.
So Adrian, I just want to thank you for your passion. That was the one thing that stood out more than anything, to me at least, was your passion for this. Every new great idea has passion behind it, and you certainly did bring that to bear before on your work on the ad hoc commission and on your work on this panel. So thank you so much for what you've done to help us get started and taking us up to primary school. Because where we are, right?
A lot to learn.
We've got nursery school, kindergarten, now I think we're in primary school. We still have a lot of growing to do.
Yeah.
But thank you.
I just want to echo Holly's comments. I think passion is a really good word for the energy that you've really put into getting the panel started. And just a couple of words about what you said. One of the things that's very striking to me that I don't think is really reflected so much in the way we operate now, and why it's so important to resolve the issues that you raised, Adrian. One of the other things that was very striking to me when I was chair and we would get in a complaint, people file complaints with the panel for a reason. I'm not quite sure what that reason is. They have the opportunity to go to the police department. And for those 31 complaints that we got in last year, these folks chose to bring them to the panel. And I believe they bring them to the panel for a reason. And largely for some of the things that Adrian you were talking about, is that in this process, whether it's an initial complaint or a review, you know, their expectation is that the panel is going to have some kind of involvement to ensure that the process is carried out appropriately. So I do agree with you, Adrian, that piece, there's, as we've said, there are growing pains, but that piece about what to do with the initial reports, and even our being able to go over and look at the investigation file. It's a step, but then where does it go? You know, because arguably we're not supposed to talk about it after we have knowledge what went on. So there's still a lot to work on, but I do think we need to remember that people come to us for a reason.
And not to be sent to the police department, which they didn't go there in the first place. And that's been expressed, that I came to you and you sent it to them, and then I have to do it again. Don't know what the answer is, but it's there.
Yeah.
I want to also thank Richard and his staff for the 2 years that they've been, or whatever, however long they've been around, a year and a half or whatever. They were designed to provide us with administrative support, and they provided more than administrative support. They've done that, but a lot of passionate. The summaries, the minutes are outstanding. They take a lot of time to do. What changes are minimal. Michelle started that, and Gentry does that now. And Richard has been a strong advocate and supporter of us as well. I also want to thank Julia for her time that she puts in and the role she now plays for that. But again, she's part of us, and the public is coming to us, and Julia's part of the people we're coming to. So all of us are only here to serve them, and that takes time. And it just seems that you all are well set to go, and I appreciate that.
Thank you. Is there any public concern?
Yeah, Adrian, thank you for all the work you've done. You said a lot, and I think it was, maybe we should make it a tradition, maybe if you want to share it in writing, whatever you said, so that way we could have that part of the archives of the panel. And because we're losing, our historian too, so it was good to have you on bringing up legislative history. Now we have to do a little bit of homework ourselves, since you really were sharp on that. But I think you said a lot, and that is very important for us to consider, and it will be helpful for us to have a part of.
I'll be glad to do that. I talk so slowly, so I can't understand why you weren't jotting that down as we went along. And that passion, every once in a while, misguided. You can throw that in, but at least it was in good faith misguided. Let's put it that way. But it's
everybody's entitled to their opinion.
Yeah, that's right. We can take a vote on that now, but we'll let that go. Let's don't have a vote on it. But it was, go back to the very beginning of the commission. This is just concept. We're going to have this thing, and it's sort of a miracle it all happened. A lot of people's work, a lot of people's compromises, a lot of on all sides. And you see Montgomery County is now trying to put one together. They've been trying to do that for years, but we did it, and that's why I say it's vested in you. You all are a unique oversight scheme that's sort of nowhere else in the country. That folks look at ours and go, oh my God, how'd they get that? With an auditor and a panel, and support the three most important things that Nate Cole told us about oversight are: you have to have the budget. The budget's not for us particularly an issue, or for Richard. You have to have sufficient access to the information, which really has not been a bar for us. You go elsewhere, and the district, they're suing the police to get the information they're supposed to give them. We get the information, and you have the continuing support of the governing body, and that's the meetings you're talking about. And I think if you come, nothing else from a meeting on March 20th or whatever, all the rest is not yet resolved. That's a concrete way to the way we're set up now. Otherwise, there's not the dialogue doesn't happen unless a crisis occurs, and that's the wrong time to have the dialogue, just because people's passions are involved. So those three things: money, access, and support. So those are the things that you and Richard ought to work to ensure your successors have. I'm done.
Anybody else want to say anything? Is there any other new business tonight that anybody wants to bring up? Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. This meeting is adjourned.